I haven't been posting a lot recently, and for the most part that's been on purpose. CPT has been going through some changes, not just evolving outwardly, but rebuilding inwardly. And I didn't want to narrate that while all of this has been happening, which also means I've paused certain video series as well. I needed space to work through it properly, but now that it has landed in a solid place, I wanted to bring you back in, show you what's been changed, what's been kept, and what's coming next. If you've been following this channel for a while, you'll notice that CPT is typically sat more adjacently to modern typology. Not because it's trying to be contrarian or reinvent the wheel, but because it's simply asking different questions. It's never really been about figuring out who you are. It's been more interested in tracking how cognition moves, how pressure builds, how nervous systems adapt, where we direct our cognitive resources dynamically, and most importantly, how we experience reality itself, and how that experience may differ between one person and another. And over the last year, that framework has become sharper, more structured, more usable, and in some ways quieter. The metaphors have been stripped back, and the language has changed, especially behind the scenes. Because there, I've been increasingly moving away from the Jungian scaffolding and MBTI shorthand. Not because they were wrong, but because they no longer held what CPT was striving to become. So CPT now runs on its own structure, a framework rooted no longer in archetypes, but in how experience forms and functions. Thanks to the advent of network theory, one of the biggest changes has been the introduction of zones and tones. Tone is more bottom-up. It reflects how your nervous system functions day to day. Kind of like your default rhythm, how you take in information, and how you resist certain types of input. It's not about mood or energy as much as about patterning. And for most people, this seems to be the most stable layer of the system, the most unchanging one. So tone is kind of like nervous trait. Zone, on the other hand, is more like nervous state. Zone is top-down. It's your system's preferred cognitive strategy. For example, whether you prioritize clarity or adaptability, whether you're sorting for coherence or efficiency. So zone is kind of like the dip functions. There's a lot more fluidity happening here. Whereas tone, essentially the CPT networks, that's going to be more stable over time. It's a bit more tricky to jump networks, but certainly not impossible. Tone switching is actually one of the main emphases of cognitive coaching, and it tends to work well for people. And together, tone and zone still don't describe your identity. Instead, they describe how you process reality, which in many ways is far more useful. And this is where type exists in CPT, but not as a label, and certainly not as an archetype or, worse yet, meme. It's simply the byproduct of how someone responds under pressure. Some people crystallize into something close to the 16 type model, whereas other people sit more clearly in the 1 out of 4 tonal model. For example, one person might be amber virtual, whereas another person might just be amber. The virtual bias isn't strong enough to warrant a 1 out of 16 type label. And both are totally valid. The emphasis of CPT has always been allowing what is real to simply exist, to emerge, without prescribing what things should or should not be. Heck, in the new model there's even spaces in between networks as well, a full type gradient. People ultimately vary in how tightly their systems are wired, and CPT doesn't force coherence where there isn't any. And that same logic, tracking movement rather than identity, is what has shaped everything I've built into CPT this past year. And the book is almost finished. It's not just a recap, but a complete rebuild. It starts by tearing open the science of personality, differentiating types and traits, exposing the blind spots of traditional models. And the way psychology in these waters tends to stop at description without ever reaching explanation. And from there it moves into deeper questions. What makes a model useful? What counts as truth in typological models? And why so many frameworks tend to fall apart when confronted with the complexity of reality. And CPT is therefore positioned as a bridge between empirical structure and lived experience. The book walks through the psychodynamic origins of type, before introducing the notation, the syntax, and the interface that holds the new system together. Also that CPT can finally be used, not just understood. And from the book emerges the CPT compass. Not a test, not a web app, not yet. It's a user interface, a way to visualize what CPT actually is. Essentially a self-navigation tool. The compass helps you orient to your tone, your zone, your current state of pressure, so that you can track not only where you are in a system, but where you are moving. So like a real compass, it doesn't diagnose you, it simply helps you navigate. There's a future version in development, and if what I'm about to propose to you goes far enough, it might become a full-fledged app. But even now, the compass is the clearest expression of CPT in motion. The website has been live for a while, as have the online tests running on the older CPT language. But the full rebuild, the platform redesign, the refined theory, the new codex, that still lies ahead. Because today I'm launching a Kickstarter. Well, a pre-launch page to a Kickstarter that's going to go live in 1 week. It's what will bring the new phase of CPT to life. It funds the completion and release of the new book, the new compass, and the rebuild of the platform. Supporters will not only get access to the new book, but also bonus content such as type guides, workshop series, as well as a provisional CPT certification path for those who want to go deeper. This is the point where CPT stops becoming something you can watch from a distance and starts becoming something you can use. And I'm landing this video just as the channel reaches 40,000 subscribers. I really cannot thank everyone enough for their continued viewership and support of the channel and the theory. And special thanks goes out to all of the amazing clients I've worked with, as well as the patrons of CPT. CPT started in 2019 as an idea I just couldn't leave alone. A model I felt needed to exist. And somehow, through years of changes and long silences, it's still here. Still building, still evolving, still unfolding. So if you've been a part of this journey with me, however quietly, thank you. You've helped this come into being. This is the next phase of CPT. We're going in some new directions, but I'm excited to see where this journey takes us. CPT 2.0 is now ready.